Good morning, Willowbrook. Today we're in Exodus chapter 18, and we are in the part of the story where Jethro comes to visit Moses in the wilderness, and he's coming mainly because he has heard what God is doing. He has heard how God is delivering the Israelites from the Egyptians and from slavery, and he wants to come and talk to Moses about it himself. And so as he sits down with Moses, who greets him with a kiss, which indicates they have a very positive relationship, and Moses probably really was welcoming the support of this man that he already loved and trusted. And so Moses sits down and says, let me tell you. And he tells him all that God has done. And he says he's delivered us from these hardships. He has guided us. He has directed us. And he really unpacks this whole thing with Jethro. And Jethro's response to this is, praise the Lord. Now I know he is the one true God because of how he has delivered Israel from Egypt. And they sit down together and they worship the Lord. And then the next day, Moses gets up and he goes on about his business as usual. And Jethro's observing, continuing to observe. And he sees Moses sit down to listen to all the complaints of the people and the disputes and the issues. And he's, this is Moses' job. He's going to have to dispense God's wisdom onto these issues and these complaints and all of these things. And Jethro looks at the situation and he says, so this is not good. This is too much for you. It's going to frustrate you. It's going to wear you out. It's going to wear out the people. They can't all be heard in a timely manner. That's going to frustrate them. And it's just too much. It's too big of a burden for Moses to carry. He says, let me give you some advice. So he suggests that Moses delegates leadership to people that are in the Israelite group. And he says, break it down into groups of 1,000, 150, and 10. Put people over those smaller groups. Let them hear the smaller issues. And then as they can't be resolved at this smaller level, the bigger issues can come all the way up to you. And that way, they get heard, and you are not having to carry this burden alone. And so Moses says, good advice, I think I'll do that. So he implements this advice. And so one of the things that I think I want to point out first is that Jethro has been an observer. He was not an Israelite who needed to be delivered from Egypt, but he was observing what was happening. And Moses was happy to talk about it. And I think that that's key for us. We need to talk about what God is doing. How has God delivered you from something? How has God worked in your life? How has he helped you navigate a hardship? You need to talk about that because people are observing. And when you talk about that, you're giving them the opportunity to see and know who the one true God is. That's very, very key. We need to be talking about God's faithfulness. Not only that, but talking about God's faithfulness has the result of leading us into worship. And when we worship with one another, we connect deeper with one another, but we also gain perspective. And I think one of those perspectives that we can gain is teachability, which is humility. And Moses, I believe, had that because the next day, whenever he's going about his business and Jethro's like, I'm going to make an observation here. Let me give you some advice. And he says, I'm going to give you some advice and may God be with you as you make this decision. Moses knew how to do that, but he received this advice. He was teachable. And the result of that is that the impact that this could have on the Israelite nation was multiplied. And instead of frustration getting bigger, the positive impact was bigger. And I think that we need to take a leaf from that book and say, what can I do to delegate some of the responsibilities in my life? If I'm a leader, if I'm leading a ministry, or if I'm leading a business, whatever it is. And quite honestly, if you're just leading in a home, if you're leading yourself, how can you tap into this concept of engaging others to help make a bigger impact? I have some of the best people in my life that I can call whenever I need perspective. And that changes my trajectory. And then I am able to continue going. I am making a different impact because I can make a phone call and engage someone else to help me navigate an issue or to settle a dispute I may be having just in my own head. Or maybe I have people I can count on as I lead a ministry. The fact is, that's key. You need to be able to look for leaders, engage those leaders because God is active and we want to be active with him. And the other thing is, if you are not engaged in any kind of ministry, if everybody has gifts and abilities, put them to good use because you know what? There are people who are carrying heavy loads and they could use your help and you have value to add. So engage. help lighten that burden of those other leaders in your life. And in so doing, you become a better leader of yourself and of those around you. And your influence increases and your impact for God increases. But most importantly, the spotlight gets put on God's activity. And then people know He is the one true God. And that is the message that we want to communicate to this world who needs Him. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope you have a wonderful day.